Episode 4. We're here. The goal is to do at least 16. So for everybody watching, thank you. We're at least doing 16, but I'm going to continue this for as long as you guys will let me and as long as YouTube will continue to publish my videos. Thank you for being here. I got to interview your wife last time. That was an absolute blast. She got to
Awesome.
tell the story from her perspective. I'm excited to interview you both when I come into town in a couple of weeks. We're going to sit down. We're going to talk about what it's like being husband and wife. But today, a topic that keeps coming up in our world and what a lot of people ask us about, it's kind of like, what's the myth versus the reality of wholesale? What is it really like to get into this business? So I thought we both have some really interesting perspectives. This could be fun to talk about.
Yeah, no, it's a great topic. Yeah, I think it comes up a lot. So yeah, definitely a lot of different avenues we could take it, but definitely a topic that comes up pretty often.
Well, I think we see it a lot, right? And our goal, like we said on this podcast a bunch of times, is I don't want to be a talking head. I don't want to be somebody that sits here and says, go do this, go do that. Oh, yeah, by the way, click the link in my bio. We're selling a course. Please hand me $5,000 to tell you something that I learned from somebody else, right? That's not the ultimate goal of this podcast. But I think there is a lot of myth versus reality in this business about how hard it is. And kind of a lot of people think it's just easy money, quickly passing a paper and some contracts. And I would say that's really 10% of the business. It sometimes happens that way, but it's not a lot. When you first got into this business, what was your experience with that?
Well, we come from the same background, right? We started the same company, right? And I think that that's kind of um, where, depending if you're starting from scratch and you're starting your own company, or if you're coming from some type of experience, working under somebody else. I think for me specifically, like I started my business after I had some experience, being in a company. But then I quickly realized that I just knew like one little bit of like how the whole machine works.
Yeah.
And you have to, go through the process, fail forward and learn all the things that I didn't know. Thankfully for me, I was very skilled in one aspect of the business. And I was, relentless, so I wasn't scared of failing, but it wasn't easy, because like I said, I mean, the narrative that like, oh, because I did a part of the business, I did, acquisitions that you can go and start an actual operation and scale it is way different than just, playing one role than actually trying to grow a company.
What did you really think it was going to be like when you first started that first part of the business? Like what in your mind was like, oh, this is what I have to go do, and that's going to be the plan, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I first thought that I wanted to flip, right? We talked about that, and I completely said, this is not for me, right? It's not my expertise, not what I like to do. And this may sound naive, but I I knew that I was going to make it work, right? That was my mindset. I was like, I'm going to make this work no matter what. And I'm going to do whatever it takes. Now, my expectations were to succeed. Now, did I have the blueprint? Did I have the experience? Did I have the knowledge that I needed to grow a company at the time? I didn't. I was very aware of that. But I knew from past experiences of being able to overcome certain challenges and things like that, that I was going to do whatever it took to figure it out. So to answer your question, I didn't really know like what it was all going to entail. I knew there was going to be some bumps on the road, some roadblocks, and I knew that there was going to be some things that that will help me that I know already. But yeah, that there was going to be a lot of learning lessons along the way.
I felt that way kind of coming in as well. I started out in traditional real estate, kind of showing houses and working out of the old brokerage where they come in and you sit in a desk and it's like, okay, great. We want to buy a house. Now let's go show you some. I started out that way. And when I was introduced to wholesale, it was like, yeah, we're going to go under contract. We're going to do nothing to the house. And then we're going to turn around. And we're going to sell it for more money. And it was just like, why would someone buy it for more money? Like it didn't make any sense to me at all. So I had really no expectation going into it. But you mentioned there were bumps and learning curves around the road. What was the biggest learning curve in your mind that you experienced opening up a wholesale business? Like, what was the first thing you were like, oh, this is something I didn't really think about that I was like, now I need to really focus on this?
I guess one of the first things was that just because I was really good, for example, I mean, at acquisitions, didn't mean that I think I had this thought process that it would be very easy to translate my knowledge and my information to somebody else.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
quickly realized that that's not, it's not that easy. Like the skill of being good at something and the skill of actually coaching and leading somebody else is a whole different ballgame. And I think it's something I realized very quick. Just because I'm good at it doesn't mean that I'm good at teaching it, coaching it, and doing all these things. So that was probably one of the first things that I encountered.
Well, there's that old saying, right? That if you can do it, it should be easy to teach it, but then sometimes it actually takes teaching it to get better at doing it. I learned that a lot through my career as well too, because I've gone back and forth from doing acquisitions to working in leadership to struggling and doing my own acquisitions on my own, and then and consulting and doing a lot of different avenues in this business. And I've kind of learned that I was a better acquisition agent after I had taught it than versus when I was just doing it on my own and being taught. So I think that is really something that a lot of leaders struggle with. How did you kind of create your process to be able to go and teach it? Like, what was the learning curve there on teaching it? Was it just simply, hey, go do what I do and say what I say? Or was it more along the lines of like, I have to custom tailor something for everybody rather than just what works for me?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Because I think at the point that when I started our company, I have had so many reps, and so many, so much experience in doing it that it was a little bit of second nature to me, So, um, once I realized that I'm like, oh, this is to get these things out of my head and teach it to somebody else. It's not gonna click just like it clicks for me, right now. So to be honest, at the beginning, I mean, and I think everybody starts off that way. Like you don't really have a process, you don't really have a training a method or a style that you want to use to train certain people or a curriculum that you want to use. So at the beginning, it was literally um, just more, watch me do it than let's do it together. Then you do it and, if we need to tweak something along the way, we'll do it again and we'll practice. But it was more of I guess at the beginning, it was more like empowering, At the beginning, it was Christy, then it was somebody else. It's just empowering them to take action, and not be scared to fail. And that I am right there with you. And it's okay to fail, but let's, watch how I do it. Now let's do it together. You do it. And the outcome is irrelevant. Let's just get the reps in because the more reps that we put in, the better we're going to get at it.
I think that's a huge piece for anybody getting started in this business is that anticipation that and I actually just said this in an interview the other day, is like, you're gonna get kicked in the face. Like, that's part of this business is the constant rejection, the constant failing forward, the constant hearing no, 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 no. But everyone always kind of looks at that as like, that's a really hard early struggle. And I always kind of approach it as like, that's exactly what you're supposed to experience when you kind of come into this world. It's like, it's gonna be a lot. It's going to be a constant struggle. It's going to be an everyday battle. I know that you experienced it. How did you find a way to tell yourself when you were feeling those early struggles, this is what I want. I'm going to continue through it. I'm going to find a path through this. I'm going to stick with it.
Yeah. It's something that I think it's just inside of me, certain individuals. Like I do have when I put my mind to something, I go 100%, 150, 100 miles per hour. And I don't let the setbacks or the struggles or the bumps on the road really stop me from trying to achieve my goal. Now, that's easier said than done because the first time that something happens to you, it affects you a lot more than the
Yeah,
second, the third, or the fifth, fourth and
of
fifth.
course.
And the way that I took it is that there was a lot of challenges, all over the place because you're starting, you have to know how to run the business, how to structure it, the marketing, the transaction coordination. Putting out you're dealing with when you're starting out, like you're dealing with fires that you didn't really have to deal with before. You're doing all these things. So I was learning on the go. But the more that I just attacked everything that came at me, I took it as a learning lesson. So the next time that same thing occurred, I had the confidence that I could solve it. So, I think my mindset, was the strongest thing because it was very difficult, but it's just knowing that when things get hard, it's almost like, okay, that's good.
Yeah,
I'm where
this is
I'm
what
where I
we
was,
expected.
yeah, that this is where I was supposed to be. Because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. I know that's cliche, but it's the truth. It's like, oh, it's hard, so this got hard, so I'm probably at the right spot, because this is probably where most people break, and I'm not.
Yeah, I remind myself of that all the time. It's like, this is what hard is supposed to feel like. I think Hermosi talked about that once upon a time. It's just like, if you knew that the expectation is now the reality, then great. Like, this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. It's supposed to be hard. I also took another cliche line that I always love to stick with. It's like, if you knew that you were going to find success on the 101st time, would you fail 100 times knowing that the 101st time you were going to succeed? The answer is always yes. You just never know that success is going to come on that 101. Could come on 107, it could come on 52, it could come on 2067. You never really know when that success is going to hit, so we kind of have to just trust that unknown. Trust that this no is just one more no closer to the ultimate yes or the ultimate goal or resolution I'm trying to hit. So rejection is just, it's part of it. We have to understand that rejection is going to be part of this game and it's going to continue. I know I've been doing this 10 years. This is actually my 10-year anniversary month in wholesale,
Hey,
which I'm super, super stoked about to be able to been doing this long. But that is the number one trait I've noticed is like, get comfortable with rejection. It's so important.
yeah, you have to get comfortable with rejection. You have to get comfortable with with just things going not the way that
Going south,
you
going
know.
sideways, deals
So
falling apart, everything.
you have to get comfortable with it all, right? And the more that you come to peace, that it's just naive to think that everything's going to go the way that you plan it, and that's why like growing the company, and then when we started coming up with core values, for me specifically, perseverance, was one of the main things that's has gotten me, to where we are today. It's persevering. It's being able to adapt and adjust, being able to go through the hard times, and knowing that it's temporary and there's always a way to solve it. We've solved every single problem we've had in the past. It's not going to be any different. So when we really came up with our core values, that's one that stood out to me, that because it's been present in my life, my whole life, whether it's business, personal, being able to persevere, being able to adapt and adjust, being able to get through the tough times. It's really those are where you're going to learn the most. That's where you're going to see what you're made of.
Yeah. I think core values is something that a lot of companies, I think they are like, oh, let's just have core values just to have core values. And it's like, no, these are actually designed for you to lean on them. For you when you're going through those struggles or you're going through those difficult times or you're trying to define the ethos of your culture, those are the things, those are the guiding lights you want to make sure are still shining principles. And do they align with who you are as a person and what your business is like? So we have perseverance. What are the other core values that when you created them, you were like, this is so important for the early beginnings of my business and where we want to take it?
Yeah. So, and actually, funny enough, Christy did a great presentation with part of the sales team yesterday, which she told me a little bit about, and I think it starts with accountability, right? I think at the peak of everything is accountability, right? Because you
Fun
have
word.
to take accountability for your results, right? You
Yep.
have to take accountability for like if something's going well, something's going bad. Like the first thing you got to do is look yourself in the mirror. You can't point this way, that way, blame somebody else. So that's where it all starts. Just taking accountability, making sure that you're holding yourself accountable for what you're supposed to be doing. So that one was also, I think it starts with that. It starts with accountability.
Yeah. Accountability is a tricky word though. And I think a lot of people look at accountability as like, well, what's the reason things went right or wrong, right? If I'm holding myself accountable in the gym, so to speak, it's like, well, did I go to the gym 4 days a week? And it's like, well, yes, I did. Well, I'm not getting the results that I want. It's like, well, accountability isn't just saying, hey, I'm going to do one thing and not be disciplined in every other aspect of my life. What's my diet like? What's my sleep regimen like? What's my mental health like? It's not just one piece to the puzzle. Businesses work the same way. And I think the biggest piece that you touched on there is great, which is accountability. Is like, no matter what's happening to me, it's still my fault. Whether it was in my control or whether it was not, if I'm taking complete and extreme ownership of what it is that I'm responsible for or that I want to be responsible for, then ultimately accountability is always on me, regardless if I did it or didn't do it. And I think that's a really important piece when you talk about that word accountability.
I agree. I agree. And actually, when you see it in our slides, right, in our meetings, like part of the definition that we have for accountability is extreme ownership. So you have to have extreme ownership for whatever your role is, whatever action you're taking, whatever call you're making. It's extremely important. And without that, you can't have. I mean, in my opinion, I think that's a pillar. And without being able to hold yourself accountable, you can't really have anything else.
Well, we see that. It's like, in wholesale, it's like, oh, I didn't have a good month this week, but my acquisitions, they're just not making the calls. They're not making the talk time. My dispositions aren't pitching the deals that I want. It's like, you're a business owner, dude. That's on you. That's 100% your fault. If your acquisition agents aren't making the talk time, how are you coaching them? What is the expectation you're sitting with them? What are you doing to be able to pour into them to get the results that you think are going to define success? Same with any other level, dispositions, marketing, operations. It's if you're seeing things going wrong in your business, it's not like, well, the people that are working for me aren't doing what I need to be doing. It's like, no, 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 no. You as a leader aren't giving them what they need to be successful, giving them the right tools and kind of making that field, so to speak, for them to go play on and be successful in it. So accountability is realizing when things are recognizing and going wrong and then saying, hey, it's your fault because you're the business owner. You're the ultimate, the buck stops with you.
Correct. I and that's how I always see it. If something goes wrong in the business, something you never see me pointing fingers or doing. No, is this?
Yeah.
Is at the end of the day, it's just I'll take accountability for it. It's like I I I failed to teach something. I failed to clarify something. I failed to give the clear instruction. Failed to recognize that this system was broken or whatever the case may be. I'm not going to go and point fingers. I'm just going to hold myself accountable and then quickly, boom, let's go find a solution.
We've been experiencing a little bit of that. We joke, Mercury's in retrograde a little bit right now, and we're experiencing some communication issues all over the business. It feels like everything's a fire. And I always kind of remind myself when I'm in these moments, it's like, this is a season. This is a normal season. Sometimes I'm going to have really easy seasons where I'll have 20, 30, 40 closings and there's no issues. And then some months it's like every closing is a quote unquote issue. And the first thing for me is reframing that emotionally and kind of how I look at it, which is it's not an issue, it's an opportunity to learn something new. It's an opportunity to get better. It's an opportunity to fix a problem that when this problem comes up again, I'm going to be able to handle it. I'm going to know how to handle it. And I'm going to have did it work last time when I tried this solution or did it fail? Okay, great. If it failed, let's try something new. If it worked, let's see if the same thing kind of duplicates and finds that success. Emotional resilience is so important in this business. How did you craft that?
The emotional intelligence, man. You know, I know I sound like a broken record, but I think it comes with everything that we're talking about and experience, and you gain experience through reps. You gain experience through going through the tough times. You gain experience through um, doing things over and over and over and over again until it becomes second nature. And the more that you see something play out, the more that you see a scenario play out, you start recognizing patterns. You start recognizing what things like you can almost anticipate, things because you have so much knowledge and experience in this field. Um, and through experience, I mean, the emotional intelligence part, plays in a multiple different aspects in our business, right? It's through the experience, you kind of know when to speak to an agent or to a employee or a team member a certain way, right? Because you can kind of read the room, is read the situation. When am I a little bit more um I don't want to say aggressive, but when do I have a firmer tone? When am I being more empathetic? When am I, taking the situation this way? When am I, it relates to all types of things, right? Like, for example, like you said, like with a buyer or a lender and things like that, it's like, when do we know when we need to be a little bit more stern, aggressive? Just have that intuition, that emotional intelligence that this is not time to be passive. This is time to be this way. And there's other times where you have to kind of read the situation and know that, like, okay, this approach may work a little better if I approach it this way.
Well, it's balancing a lot of people's emotions in our world, and that's I reflect on that quite often because it's like we have sellers who most of the time have problems that need solving, right? That they're like looking to kind of sell us a property and be done with it, and we're able to create a solution. But then you have investors, And it's investors of all level, people that have been doing this for 15, 20, 25 years. They're used to buying houses. They know the game. And then you have people that, like us starting out, they're like, "Hey, I'm flipping my first house. I'm going to do that. I'm using my life savings to do it. This deal means everything to me. I need to be able to kind of create that avenue of wealth and success for myself." And it's balancing all of those different emotions being in the middle of it and understanding like, where do I need to be strong and firm with some buyers when they're not picking up the phone the day of closing? Or where do I need to help them figure out how to register their LLC or figure out how to get in touch with a hard money lender or give them those options and kind of hold their hand? And it's using that experience in the past of failing forward to know which time is the appropriate lever to pull.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. And it's intentionally, and then you also have to intentionally like take some time to reflect on like the things that happen to make sure that you're actually gaining the right lesson from it, right? So it's easier said than done, but something that has helped me tremendously is just having like thinking time, strategic time, reflecting on the decisions that I made. Because that's where you gain you gain the emotional intelligence, reflecting on the decisions that you made, what the results were, if they worked out, if they didn't, what did I want to happen and did it happen? And if not, why? And how can I do it differently next time? Right. And think through wrapping that out multiple times, you eventually gain, emotional intelligence around, a bunch of different uh, topics and things in the business. So you know how to kind of move in a certain direction when something happens.
Well, reflection came early on for you. You mentioned it. You were not into flipping. You thought you wanted to be a flipper, and then it was like, no, that's not for me. I to this day, I have a love hate relationship with flipping. I loved it in certain years. I've hated it in certain years as well. There's a small part of me that still thinks like, oh, that could be fun, and then I remember what it's like, and I'm like, I like what I'm doing too. Um, how hard was it for you early on in that journey when you're like, "Hey, I wanna be a flipper." You have the personality of, "I don't wanna give up on anything I start. I know I'm gonna finish. I'm gonna continue to push through." I think a lot of entrepreneurs carry that spirit. But understanding what's right for me doesn't necessarily mean it has to be the thing that I stick to, right? It's like, I tried it, I did it, I accomplished it, but this isn't for me. How did you kinda walk us through that journey a little bit?
Yeah, and I think it has to do with like my personality as well. Like I didn't necessarily enjoy managing crews and doing things, and I think it was, to be honest, a little bit of slower pace as well. And then there's things that, flips, they always have surprises. They always cost more than you think, and there's delays and things like that. And I just, that's when I started understanding like what are my superpowers? Like what am I good at? Like what do I enjoy day to day? And me, like as sick as it sounds, I kind of enjoy this cat and mouse chase that we're in, like it fuels me, it fires me up, and I like the day to day grind, and I like, chasing deals and making deals happen and helping people and growing. And I think if it fits much more with my personality and who I am and how I operate and how I'm wired. And then also in my skill set, my skill set wasn't to go manage crews. My skill set was, to do what we're doing now.
Yeah. A lot of people talk about that, loving the process. And I think the process now, especially if you've gotten into wholesale, you started in 21, 20, 22, and then versus what you're experiencing now, I think a lot of people probably might saying, is this for me anymore? Is this something that I want to do? Because the market is very different. The climate is very different. The atmosphere is very different. How did you continue to stay in love with the process going through those ebbs and flows of it being easier? And I put easier in air quotes because we made a lot of money and we did a lot of fun things in 21 and 22, but it still wasn't easy. There was a lot of challenges, there was a lot of growth, there was a lot of things we needed to tackle. But how do you maintain that mindset of loving the process as the process goes through such highs and lows?
I think to me, it's like not overthinking it. I never really sat there and, I'm not going
Kind
to
of
sit
reflect.
there and feel sorry for myself because the market got a
Yeah.
little harder. And I
Yeah.
never sat there and really like just dwelled on the fact that it's a little harder now.
Yeah.
My mindset was always like, we're always going to figure out a way to make things work. And I just, we adapted and adjusted. When things got a little tougher on one side, then we adapted and adjusted in that department. When dispo got harder, when whatever the hell was going on, just being able to have that mindset that like, hey, the longer that you sit on something, the longer that you sit on whatever's going on, the more that you're going to create the story in your head and the more that it's going to drag you down. Typically, what resolves that is just taking massive action, right? Doing it strategically, methodically, but just take action. Go do the thing that you need to do to make it work. And I just felt like to your answer your question, I just fell in love with the process of continuing to grow, to solve problems, to remove bottlenecks, to encourage the team, to keep going, to see the company grow, to see people succeed, right? So like I fell in love with the whole process as I started growing from the beginning. You asked me about the beginning. I eventually started falling in love with other things about the business. I started falling in love with the process of seeing people grow, people succeeding in our company, people having their first six-figure, year, them, making, their first purchase, their first home. So I started falling in love with all these other things that came with it. So it just kept me. It just that there's always so it kind of switched. I mean, my perspective from when I started to what it is now is completely different because now I'm in love with just the team, the growth, everybody, me waking up every morning. And when I'm tying my shoes, I'm thinking of our teammates, I'm thinking of their families, I'm thinking of everybody. So I'm in love with seeing people succeed. I'm in love with the process. I'm in love with, solving the problems and helping remove bottlenecks. I'm seeing people level up. So there's always like, I think, to answer your question, I've kind of, there's things that I've fallen in love with over and over again that were different. That's kept me, super engaged in the business.
So it's an interesting response because it's not really, hey, I fell in love with, we were able to make bigger spreads, or I fell in love with, we were able to open up an ovation division, or it's not wholesale. It's, I fell in love with finding bottlenecks. I fell in love with seeing our team members grow. I fell in love with just the day to day that I think exists in every business. So whether it's you own a restaurant, you own a wholesale shop, you own anything in between, it's if you are you following in love with the impact and the things that you're doing to help hold people more accountable, to help grow your business, to help your business change lives, not only yours, but the ones of your team members. If you start falling in love with those things, then the bumpy road, so to speak, it sounds like, becomes a lot smoother with what it is you're dealing with. Is that kind of fair for you to say?
Yeah, yeah, no, spot on. And to kind of to piggyback off your point, in that process of falling in love, there's just also a lot of heartache. It's like that's just what comes with doing something and wanting to be great at something, right? There's a lot of heartache,
Yeah.
there's a lot of challenges. And in a weird way, it's almost like enjoying that process as well. Enjoy the process of when things are tough, enjoying those seasons where things a little bit more difficult, because you have to embrace those. I know I say it all the time to the team is, from the book from Jim Rohn, Seasons of Life. Like, there's winners. We're all going to go to winners, and winters happen once a year. Every year is naive to think they're not going to happen, but they don't last forever, right? And you can either go through them or you can grow through them. And that's just how it is.
Well, I think that the importance there is really just work ethic versus talent too, because it's you when you're going through a winter, sometimes talent doesn't carry you. And it's having to separate that and say, hey, I know I'm talented. I know I'm capable, but what is my work ethic going to show? Right? Is it going to show that consistency? Is it going to show that repetition? Is it going to show that discipline overall for to carry me through these winters and how we make it through? Do you ever find yourself sometimes questioning that though? Like it's just I'm tired, I'm burnt. I don't, a lot of we hear that term thrown around. I'm burnout. I'm overworked. I'm feeling flustered, feeling anxious. I feel like, and this isn't me making fun of anybody, but everybody always has some sort of anxiety or anything, something going on. We all got our life stuff going on. We all need it. I go through my own struggles with that sometimes as well too. How do you make sure that you quiet that noise, can't even speak. How do you make sure you quiet that noise and put your work ethic in front of your talent, put your work ethic in front of your feelings, just put your head down and grind?
Yeah, and the reality is, right? We were talking at the beginning, like the reality is that if you're going to go all in on this, is that you are
Mhm.
going to experience stress, anxiety.
Yeah.
You're gonna that shit's all gonna fucking pop up. It's just
Yeah.
it's inevitable. It's inevitable, right? So it's not like there's a way to like not experience that because you're gonna experience it. It's like, but the key thing is like doing the thing that you say you were going to do regardless of how you feel. And that's like the key. If I'm stressed, if I'm anxious, if I am frustrated, it's just still sticking to the plan and saying and doing the thing that I know works, that what I said I was going to do, and doing it regardless of how I feel, which is a hard thing to do. That's also a skill. That's also something you have to learn. I'm not perfect at it, but that is the way I look at it. Because listen, am I stressed out? At times, yes. Am I anxious at times? Absolutely. Right. There's a lot going on all the time when you're growing a business, but it's just, I'm going to do the thing regardless of how I feel. Now, um, is there resources? Are there things that you could do to manage, your stress and things that you could do? You can get some coaching? Can you get some, you can. There are resources and tools and things that you could do to kind of reduce it. But at the end of the day, like, you are going to experience those things and you still have to push through and do the thing that you said you were going to do.
Coaching is a really interesting topic that I think would be a good, because you just mentioned that there, and it made me think. Coaching is something I've gotten in the past. I know you've gotten some coaching in the past. I know a lot of us have reached out to alternative resources. I think they're great. Sometimes though, you have to be able to be in the, and I can say this, the right ego mindset to be able to really experience that coaching. When I started out, I knew I was talented. I knew I could go do some things. I knew that I had the ability, but it was really hard for me to be coachable early on, because it was like I had the talent and I had the work ethic. Why am I not finding success? I believe in my system. I believe in my process. I'm hitting it. I'm hitting it. I'm hitting it. And then it was like, well, your ego's not letting you hear the opportunity for you to grow. So when you're in those moments of feeling like, okay, I believe in my system. I'm working my ass off. I'm doing the things I need to do. When do you start to realize, or maybe you have your own personal story with this? When was it you're like, I need some coaching. I need to hear the coaching, and I need to maybe consider an alternative point of view.
Yeah, and I think especially for entrepreneurs, CEO or anybody in life doing something at a high level, right? I for me, it was a point where business is business, and business is going to have its ups and downs, right? So you have that stress on you, and then life happens outside of work, right? Outside
Yeah.
of business, right? So when you combine certain things that are could be like tragic, right? It could be the death of a family, it could be somebody gets really sick, it could be a shitstorm of things, that happen personally. On top of the stress, you go with business. I think I've experienced that a few times, and early on, I not early on, but when there was a point in time where I there was a lot of things going on personally, and then I'm still, running through walls to make sure the business is not suffering. That I think I spread myself too thin, and I didn't realize what I was doing to me personally, right? So at that point, when I realized, like, oh, like, I'm going through some stuff right now that I haven't been through before. I have all these responsibilities, all these things that are happening. I have responsibilities outside of the business. I'm married. I have, so at that point, I knew that I was in almost in an uncharted territory. I didn't know, I haven't been to that before. So, that was, at one point when I experienced that, where I got some high level coaching on how to, deal with these things, and
Yeah.
how to regulate myself better, how to deal with life regardless of what happens, how to deal with tough situations, how to make sure that, I can show up the best that I can, regardless of what's going on, and still be productive at work, still be a family man, still be who I need to be, on top of all the shitstorm that may be going on at the same time.
Well, sometimes I think we trick ourselves, especially as leaders and entrepreneurs and people that might have titles higher up in a business. It's like, no, 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 it's my job to help everyone else. Well, who helps you? Who makes sure that you are in the right place to be able to help others? I mean, my wife and I talk about it with the kids, right? We have to fill our own cups to be able to pour into theirs. We can't pour from an empty cup to be able to help our kids out. It exists in leadership as well too. So if you're a leader and you find yourself struggling with, like, hey, I feel like I'm in uncharted waters. I don't know how to navigate this, but yet people are still coming to me asking me, "Hey, Shane, how do I navigate these things?" I don't have a freaking clue.
Mhm.
But I needed to check that part of the ego that was like, "But it's your job, Shane. You're the one that's supposed to figure it out. You're the guy that's there to be the problem solver." It's like, sometimes I don't have the answer to every problem, and that's maybe because I didn't go through the circumstance yet, so I haven't seen this play out, so to speak, or I've gone through this. Everything I've tried in the past has absolutely failed. I know that if I do the same thing again, it's probably going to fail again. Let me get a different perspective and a point of view. And both times I needed to check my ego. I needed to leave that at the door to be able to hear that and really like absorb that coaching from any level. And I think that's a huge part of this business is check your ego at the door. Because whatever you think that you're good at or whatever you know you're bad at or whatever, that might be true, but you need to be able to hear it from 360 degrees and be able to really love that coaching and love that feedback, regardless of the level you sit at.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree, and I agree 100%. And then getting the right, getting the right person to
The
talk
right coach. That's
the right
huge too.
coach, the right person, the right mentor, the right friend, whatever it may be, right? You could get terrible advice from somebody, right? That they don't mean to, right? But you need to make sure that for whatever it is, well, whatever level you're at or whatever you're going through, you get the right feedback that you need, the right strategy, the right direction. And if you have a strong circle, that you can rely on, then it's going to make things, way easier. Kind of creating that circle of people, whoever that may be. It could be a combination of a coach and a friend and or a teammate and things that that you can kind of rely on when you need it as well. Because, like you said, um, you can't operate at a high level if your capacity is at 50%, you know? And sometimes you are going to be there, but recognizing that you're there and figuring out what you need to do, whether it's taking a little bit of time or taking a freaking walk or whatever it may be to kind of recharge your cup, or maybe it's a day off, or maybe it is talking to a coach, a friend or something. Like, you need to make sure, because if you start showing up at 50%, you start showing up at 40%, next thing you know, you're half-assing everything, not because you want to, but it's because your mental capacity and you're unregulated, and you're not doing things the way you're supposed to.
And I didn't realize that until I went to something called Bell Leadership in North Carolina, where it was like, if you're at 50% and operating at 50%, but you're not being transparent with your team that that's where you are, you're not asking for help, you're still trying to just, blow through walls, as you said, to just literally just push your way through everything. I didn't realize that the insecurity that I was putting on the rest of my team by doing that. And I learned that when they filled out those anonymous surveys, which was, yeah, when Shane looks like he's burnt, when Shane looks like he's fried, when, I start to question, am I feeling safe and secure in this environment? Rather than if Shane just expressed, hey, guys, I'm really struggling with this thing right now. I'd really need your help doing X, Y, or Z, whatever that might be. That actually helps the team member feel a little bit more secure, helps them feel a little bit more bought in. And they really, truly feel like, I know what he's going through. I want to step up to maybe fill that extra 50%. And sometimes as leaders, I don't think we show that trust enough. And I think we always should, because it's really, really important to be able to show your team, I trust you. I believe in you. I'm a little fried right now. I need your help. And that doesn't make you a bad leader. It makes you somebody that is still vulnerable and you're basically practicing what you preach.
Yeah, 1,000%, 1,000%. And it's very important to do that. And I think that once you recognize that you are getting to that point, speed to action is very important.
Yeah.
It's just going and doing whatever it is that you need to do to regulate yourself, to get that help, to talk to that person, to refill your cup back up. Maybe it is that you just need to, you recognize that you stopped doing some habits that used to
Yeah.
fuel you up. Sometimes is
Habits
that
are,
I stopped taking care of myself. I stopped, playing, for me at one point, right, it was jujitsu, right? And I unfortunately couldn't do jujitsu. It was an outlet for me, right? And I got injured. I had surgeries. And so I stopped doing that physical, thing that I fell in love with outside of work that would like take my mind off of things. And because I couldn't do it anymore, it's like, oh, so I'm not doing anything? Like, no, I had to go
mm.
find something else. Let me go play pickleball. Let me go do something else that's active and competitive that fills up my cup outside of this. It could be many different things, but speed to action and recognizing when you're there and kind of trying to course correct, with yourself and with the help of others, is very important.
So identifying good habit, I think habits is such it. My brain got stuck there when you said that word. I think habits is such a huge impact for people in any business, but especially this one, as far as good habits and versus bad habits. Sometimes we all have habits that are bad, and maybe outside others can see those habits, and they're like, "Hey, I know why. or at least I shouldn't say I know. I have an idea on what might be hindering you in your progress, your success, what it is you're trying to work through, but you have a hard time being you, the person, have a hard time seeing it for yourself. Are there any things that you kind of go through, any kind of phrases or kind of key exercises you go through to start help you identify what's a good habit versus what's a bad?
Yeah, for sure. A simple exercise that I do once once a quarter is like I write down like every like different aspects of life, like business, uh, marriage, household, parenting, finances. There's like a list of 10 things I have written out, and I'll just rank them from like 1 to 10,
Mhm.
and you'll be
Just spot
surprised.
rank them.
I just rank them from like where do I fit physically, like my physical, this, my health, this and that, and I just rank them 1 to 10, like, but being very honest.
Mhm.
And then you'll be like some are like eight, nines, and then you'll see some that are like fours,
Yeah,
and
what's
then
the red zone for you? Is it like below 5? Is it below 6? It's like,
well, it's
this
like
is
you just
time
have
for
to
a
be
change?
honest with yourself. Obviously, it's like, it's a personal thing, but if you generally if you're some things at a 5 or a 4, obviously there's something missing, right? Like, or if you was at 6, but once you do that audit, you do an audit like that and you realize like, oh, these aspects of my life are like really low, and the crazy thing is that if you identify those and then you just focus on those 2 that are really low, and you bring them up from a 4, 5 to a 7. What you realize is that once you bring those up by from a 5 to a 7, all the list of things, everything goes up at the same time.
For me, it's a fear of mine sometimes because I'll do the same thing. I'll do an audit, but if I do have a 3 or a 4 in some area, I'm always and again, this is something that I'm working through on my own and something I'm working through with my own coaching and something I'm trying to get past is like, I'm afraid that if I raise that up to a 5, 6, 7, I see how to do it. I know how to do it. I know that it's gonna be something that in my mind, I can tell myself at least that this is going to help improve all the other elements, just like you're saying, but I'm really terrified on the other end because maybe my career and my business is a 9 and a 10. And it's because I'm investing so much time, energy, and focus into that. That if I raise my household from a 5 to a 7, or I raise my, being around more for my kids from a 4 to an 8, it's going to naturally cause my business and my professional to go from a 9, 10 to a 7 because I just simply won't be able to give it the time. How do you quell that fear? I know for me it's really hard to do sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. And the reality is, right? And I think having the right partner, right? If you are married, having the right circle, understanding,
Support system.
a support system and understanding who you are at your core, right? Like my wife knows who I am, right? Like she understands I'm not the typical guy, right? Like I may work a little longer most. I may bust my ass a little more. I do have to take care of a lot. I have to. So does she, right? She has a lot on her plate, but she understands how my brain is wired. And reality is that sometimes I'm going to show up late.
Mhm.
Sometimes I am going to be home late. Sometimes it's just I there's certain things I need to do. So that for one, having a good support system. Two, I think it's a story that we tell in our head that that if I do this, then it's gonna hinder that. It actually is the opposite. I never seen it actually not play out where if you improve your physical and your health, because you're putting more attention to that, then your business no, actually your business goes up. Like if you improve your home life, your business actually goes up, and you thought you were at an 8 or a 9 in business, but you realize, oh shit, I was probably at a 6 and I brought it to a 10 because I fixed all these other things. So I think it's a fake narrative that we paint in our heads because we're so like driven to like get results and stuff that we fear that if we and it's not like you're taking the foot off the gas. It's like you're putting attention towards something that is important that you've been ignoring.
Yeah.
And when
What's
you
the
do
story?
that, you see that everything else elevates with it.
Yeah, what's the story you're telling yourself? That's always an important one. Another question, it's a cheesy line, but I always ask myself this question. It's like, if there was an audience watching the movie of your life, what would the audience be screaming at you to go do?
Correct.
Right? Like we know that answer deep down inside of it, whether it's a good habit, whether it's a bad habit, whether it's, go for the job that you want, leave the job that you're in, whatever that may be, what would the audience be screaming at you to go do? And most of the time, if you're really actively working towards going and doing those things that the audience would be screaming, you'll see that ultimate improvement. And I think there's an interesting point you made there with the time. Is like my biggest concern is I want to spend as much time with my kids as I possibly can. It's like, well, I might be 10, 15 minutes late. But when I show up 15 minutes late, my phone's in my pocket. I'm not on my phone still trying to work. It's like, well, you can't show up late and still be on your phone, right? It's like you
Right.
can be intentional with wherever you are, but be present and intentional with wherever you are. That takes discipline.
Takes discipline. Takes discipline. It's easier said than done, right? We're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it, but it's that recognizing that just be present, be present. If you're at work, be at work. If you're at home, be at home. If you're playing soccer, play soccer, like don't,
Mhm. Don't try to mix.
Jim Rohn is just one of my favorite speakers. Jim Rohn has says, one of his speeches, he says that if you're on vacation, while you're at work, right? While you're on vacation, you're going to be thinking about work, right? So it's like no, when you're at work, be at work. When you're on vacation, be on vacation. Because if you're thinking about vacation when you're at work on vacation, you're probably going to be thinking about like, oh shit, like work. I didn't do the things that I was supposed to do, and you're not going to enjoy it. So just be present, and whatever the thing you're doing is, just be there and do it to the best of your abilities. And whenever you are doing something else, like put your focus on that, and put everything else down.
For us as leaders too, it's really important to embody that just as much as we preach it. And I think that's sometimes a hard struggle for entrepreneurs too, is like, I love for my people to have a great work-life balance. I want this place to be the catapult in their life. But then it's like, well, dude, you also have to practice what you preach. It has to be a catapult for your life too. It has to give you that same work-life balance. And I think especially as a CEO and a founder, it's like, well, I have the expectations of how hard I'm going to work. I have to be very balanced between what coaching and leadership and holding people accountable looks like versus like, am I holding them to the standard I hold myself to? Because that might not be their standard, right? And realizing and recognizing where I need to be very disciplined with that takes a lot of learning.
It does. It does. And that also comes with like understanding, like, like I said, like the growth process of like learning things as you go. Is that you need to, if you are going to be the CEO, right? Like you set this, you set the stage, and you set the standards. All right. Listen, there may be some great people out there, that are great workers and stuff like that. But if they don't have certain things that I value, that I think are important, that I just, expect, if you're going to come in here, you're going to get a lot of love, respect, and support. But there's just certain things that if you're not doing XYZ, if I have to charge your batteries, if I have to,
Mhm.
consistently tell you, if you're not going above and beyond, it's just, we're going to be very uncomfortable around each other. Right. So it's almost like you're a great person, but we need to have people around us that are going to be in alignment with our values and what we see, because if not, there's going to be a lot of friction.
It's really important to set those expectations early on too. Like that is, it's not like, hey, come in, it's going to be sunshine and rainbows. And then the moment they're in the door, it's like, no, do it this way, this way, this way. It's like, no, no, no. If you have those things about your business, if you're sitting there going, yeah, I totally agree. I want people to be able to charge their own batteries. I want people to have these certain traits in my business. I want people to have these things that I have. Make that known. Like in your interview process, in training, in the job description even make it known, hey, when you're going to come and play on this team, this is kind of the standard that we hold ourselves to. Nick Saban was famous for that as an Alabama coach. Like it was just like, you aren't going to come into Alabama and play football how you played it in high school because it worked for you. You're going to play it the Alabama way. And I think having that inside your business is so important, and that belief in that system.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to, because if you don't, like I said, there's going to be a lot of friction. There's going to be disalignment, right? You're going to find yourself consistently trying to, realign or try to make somebody be who they're not, right? Like we can coach, we can teach everybody certain skills, right? And we can help them grow, right? There's certain things that we can teach them along the way, but there's certain set of standards, character, and traits that just have to come with the person, right? Like you don't you don't find them and make them great. Like you find
Hmm.
them good and make them great. You have to find the good person already. They have to be good and great once they come in, right? You just make them better, right? I'm not gonna turn somebody into somebody that they're not, right? So they have to be good, and you make them great.
Hmm. When we first started out, the traits we would look for: are you grinding your ass off? Are you almost money hungry a little bit? Are you chasing everything? Are you a hunter? Do you find that there are traits that you look for now that you didn't necessarily look for when you first started out in
Yeah.
kind of the people that you hire?
Yeah, for sure, and I'm not obviously in charge of, like, the hiring and the but
Mhm,
yes, but we discuss it a lot,
mhm,
and I think something that we missed for a while is those things. You want the hunter, you want somebody who's, motivated grinder, but you also want somebody who gets excited about what it takes to make that money, right? Like, are you like, if somebody actually like, now I think it's kind of a red flag if all they talk about is like, "Oh, yeah, I like the opportunity to be able to make, multiple 6 figures," whatever the case may be, and that's all they talk about. To me, it's a red flag because I want them to talk about, like, how excited they are to solve problems, how
mm,
how excited they are to actually go through the process of, like, going through the grind of, like, figuring it out and stuff like that. If they're excited about that, then the outcomes and the money comes. But that's something that I think, we've learned that it's not just like super hungry. Yes, it's like, are you actually excited about what the role entails and the problem solving? And if that doesn't excite you and the money's the only thing that excites you, then they're gonna, it usually turns out that they're not the right fit.
yeah, if you have a 20-mile hike uphill, are you excited about reaching the finish line, or are you excited about the fact that it's uphill? And it's really about being excited about that it's uphill. That's where the actual magic in hiring really happens. I think that's a great perspective to look at, because a lot of times it's like, do you work hard? And I think work hard is a different it's a different meaning for different people, right? Like sometimes people look at work hard as like, I just showed up. It's like, well, you're here, you're present, you did show up and you did your job, but there's more to it. There's having that love of running up that 20-mile hill, not reaching the finish line.
Correct. And every role is different, right? Every role that we have in the company has its different like uphill,
Yeah,
battles or
man.
uphill, like, or problem solving. And it's a little different for all. But if the person that you're interviewing, the person you have is not excited about that, it's not excited about like the that aspect of it. And they're just excited, and they're just money hungry or they're just, super eager, but they don't have like, you don't recognize that they have that is actually going to energize them. Then it's probably not going to work out.
Yeah, the importance of understanding what energizes somebody is gonna be huge,
Hmm.
because it's like, I can be energized. I used to think about it all the time as a kid. It's like, when I made X amount of dollars, I'll be happy, and I'll like what I like, okay, well, I hit the money level, and now it's like, well, no, I still wanna keep going, I still wanna go past it. Okay, so money really wasn't the motivator at a certain point. It has to be what brings me energy, what kind of fuels me naturally, and where do those problems and opportunities exist for me to overcome them. I like being able to lift a heavier weight. I like being able to chase, bigger goals and bigger dreams, not to get them, but in knowing what I'm going to experience while going after them. I think that this is going to be huge.
Huge, huge. Yeah. Cause that's the thing. It's like, it's not like the pursuit of happiness. It's a, it's a happiness of the pursuit, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like,
That's really true.
you know what I'm saying? It's like you're not it's the opposite in my opinion.
Yeah. No, yeah, if you can't, because what if you never win the race, so to speak? I always tell people that all the time. It's like, I wanted to be a police officer my entire life. I spent my most of my formative years thinking that's all I wanted to do in this world, and for something completely out of my control, "Hey, you can't hear that well, Shane. You can't go in the military. You can't be a police officer. That's going to be your story." And it was like, well, what am I going to do? Like, if I'm not able to finish that race, what am I going to do? I had to completely change gears, and it's led me on a really weird, windy road journey to here. And I've just kind of learned to love that. It's like, this isn't my finish line. Like, I don't know where my finish line is ultimately going to be, but cool. I'm doing this right now, and this is the race that I'm on. And I absolutely love that, especially, looking towards the future.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's a great perspective, right? Like you've told me about the story, right? That you were set in stone for years that you wanted to do this and you wanted to go into
The
you
uniform,
know,
the badge, wanted the whole thing. I wanted to go chase people in the U.S. Marshals. That was my original goal.
right. And then that didn't work out.
Mhm.
And then you went in a different route and you ended up doing what you did. And like you said, and it just we talk about it all the time and like, uh, you know, uh, higher power, whatever you make want to call it, and you putting yourself in the right positions, like you ended up here, and who would have known, right? Like 5 years ago, right? And here we are, and loving what we do, grinding what we do, going through the things that we do, and who could have scripted that, right? But it's just it's enjoying the process and knowing that, hey, like if you do the right thing, you bust your butt, you go through the hard things, like you're gonna end up where where you're supposed to be. And I think your story is like a perfect example, right? Like look where we are now, we're here,
Yeah.
who would have known? And it's been amazing.
Yeah, 10 years ago, somebody like I said, I didn't even know wholesale existed. Now I'm celebrating a 10-year anniversary this month and being in this business, and it's like, I love it. It's a great journey, and I wouldn't have known that this existed had I not lost my hearing, had I not failed at enterprise rent-a-car, had I not gone into traditional real estate. It's all kinda led me to where I am now, and I'm really excited for 10 years in the future of going, had I not done who knows, maybe the podcast, had I not done this, had I not done that, I would have never gotten to this point, and I have no idea what that point is. I don't even have really a goal in mind as far as what that point's going to be. It's more along the lines of just, like, love what you're doing every day. And I think that's a great place to kind of end with the final topic I wanted to talk about here. A lot of uncertainty in the market, in the world. There's a lot of noise, I think, externally right now. World War III, the market's up, the Dow's this, all of that is noise. Mortgage rates. The mortgage rates are at the lowest point in the last 3 years, but the buyers aren't buying. What's happening? Is there a freeze? How do you really block that out and focus on the journey?
This may sound very like a very simple answer, man, but like there are things that are God's problems, and there are things that are my
Mm,
problem.
mhm.
And I'm not gonna go and step into God's problems, I'm gonna handle my problems. And yes, are there things happening around the world, the things in the economy that you need to keep an eye on so you can adapt and adjust. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna control what I can control, and I'm gonna worry about my problems. I'm gonna let God handle, God's problems.
Yeah. Be aware, but don't be fearful, right? And trusting that it's all gonna work out. May not work out how you think it's going to, or how
Hmm.
you want it to work out. But ultimately you'll get to that point and just be aware, but don't be fearful. I think that's great, man. I think that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, that's may sound simple, but that's just what it is, right? Like there's things that you can control, right? And you have a hand in it, and you can take action towards something. There's just some things that it's not worth spending too much time in your head and worrying about things that you really that are not have nothing to do with you, or that you have no control over.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's perfect. I think that's a great place to wrap. Episode 4. I can't believe it's been an hour already. Thank you guys. 4. I did 2 plus 2, episode 4. Thank you guys for being here. If you are interested in anything that you'd like to hear us talk about, please comment, leave us a note on social, send us a DM, whatever. We'd love to hear it. We love to make sure that we're producing content that's for you guys, not to just be talking heads with microphones in front of us. Thank you so much for being here, Charles. Thank you for being here, brother.
absolutely, brother. Loved it.
Have the day you deserve, everybody.
Let's get it.
Peace.